Welcome to this Nordic Talk, which is a series of live sessions and podcasts addressing biggest global challenges facing us today. Today's discussion is titled Youth Voices for Nature and is coming to you from Vilnius, Klaipėda, Tauragė in Lithuania, and Oslo in Norway. It is obvious that youth is a vital stakeholder in sustainable development. So we brought together three young and bright minds for a conversation about environment and a kind of economic development with nature and long-term needs in mind. And we hope to discuss not only how we experience the ecological crisis we hear about almost every day, but also solutions and actions we can take to shift things towards a more sustainable future. My name is Vaida Pilibaitytė, and I'm joined today by Anne Sereli, a youth delegate at the Norwegian Children and Youth Council. Hello and good morning to you. Živilė Mantrimaitė, a climate justice activist and former project coordinator with the Young Friends of the Earth Europe. Hello to you as well in Klaipėda. And Dovydas Kaminskas, a mayor of Tauragė district municipality here in southwest of Lithuania. Good morning and thank you all for joining us today. And for all of those watching us live on Facebook and elsewhere, hopefully, please feel free to post your questions in comment fields below. We try to pick on them as we go along during this next hour or so. And I would like to begin by taking a round with all three of you and talk a little why sustainability is important to you and how you experience environmental crisis where you live, what you see as important issues. And I would like to start with Anne in Oslo. You have been working with a local NGO in Norway as a youth delegate for climate change, at representing the country and youth at UN meetings. So how did you start focusing on these issues? What drove you towards them, if you can tell us a bit?
Hey, thank you, Vaida, for the question, and good day, everyone. It's a pleasure to share this coming hour with you. I have been concerned with the climate issues for as long as I can remember, at least the justice issues, because for me, climate issues is also an issue of justice. And the issue of climate is among the biggest issues of solidarity today. Today's climate policy affects children and young people, both today and in the future. And since science states that we won't reach the Paris Agreement 1.5 nor 2 degrees goal if we continue the way we do today. So this is why, in short terms, why I am engaged and where my engagement.
Would you say that young people in Norway are genuinely mostly worried about climate change and what it means for them in the future?
I recently talked to a girl that has participated in the school strikes for climate, and she told me that what is most difficult to her is to be responsible for the actions that Norway's politics makes for the future, one that potentially can contribute to millions of people losing their homes. And many of the strikers I've been talking to, they say that it's difficult to live with the consequences of the politics that globally affect the most vulnerable hardest. So yes, I would say a lot of, not only the strikers, but also in general, and society in general, a lot of people is concerned about the issue of climate.
And it goes beyond the borders of Norway, this concern, yes?
Yes. I've been, as you said, I've been participating in the UN climate negotiations now for 2 years as an observer, and there you see youth from all over the world come together. That's especially concerned about the issue of climate. So.
Yes, Živilė, I know you started off as a volunteer with the waste cleanup campaign, Let's Do It, here in Lithuania. Although you also, I know, consider yourself a climate justice activist as well. Tell us more how you came to this topic. How did you get engaged in this?
So I was born in Klaipėda, which is a port city in Lithuania, and so I grew up there, and I'm back to Klaipėda, and I think although in Lithuania many people in general are not really concerned yet about climate change because they probably don't feel the direct impacts of climate and extreme weather events and things like that. In Klaipėda, what we felt is the environmental injustices. So things like air pollution and waste and so on. So this is how I started, because it was really obvious that that's the problem. So I joined a local eco club called Žvejone here in Klaipėda. Started with Let's Do It World, which is, as I now see, is a really good action to mobilize people, because it's something that people see in their forests, it's something that people see, waste everywhere. But then, of course, after organizing some things here, I also realized that the issue is not, it's environmental justice is a big issue, but it also goes beyond on a global scale to this climate justice, what we call climate justice and climate change. So I started from a small environmental justice perspective, but moved on into a global scale because I think that's also very urgent at this point.
How would you explain climate justice as a concept for someone who hasn't, heard about it or didn't really read about it, didn't encounter it in more detail?
I think it's something many people will explain it different ways, but I personally think it's something that if you put the people's perspective in the politics of climate change, if you put the perspective of social justice when talking about climate change, because we can simply talk about reducing emissions and changing economy, but if you don't think about how it will affect people, how it will affect people in your country, people who may be coming from different backgrounds, but also how it will affect people and countries globally. So I'm talking about the global south here as well. If we don't put that in the perspective in any decisions we make, that's not climate justice. So I believe that it's just putting the people's needs in these discussions. That's what you can call climate justice.
And it's also about the fact, the simple reality that climate change and global ecological crisis has been caused by countries of so-called global north, yes, the most developed countries, but the effects, the most severe effects of environmental crisis globally, firstly will be felt by those so-called global south in the less developed countries, right?
Yes, and they already felt. It's not that they will be felt. They already felt, and especially in the tiny nations, and yeah. So it's really thinking about that. But also you can think about climate justice. It doesn't need to be global. You can also think about that locally. You can think about how it relates to different to people who have, for example, different incomes. So how would different tools to manage climate change, economical tools, would affect them? And you can think about how it would affect women in comparison to men. So if you start asking all these questions, then you start thinking about climate justice.
Yeah, and it's a very good point that we should be talking about this in present tense. This is affecting us already every day. It doesn't matter where we live. Dovydas, I want to turn to you. You are a mayor, a representative of local government, and you were drawn to environmental topics while doing your master's in law in Denmark, right? Can you tell us more about it? And I know that I think the slogan of your municipality administration is think globally, act locally. That's like a classic. So can you tell us more about why is this important to you and how you came to this?
Yeah, so hello, everybody. My first engagement, as Vaida said, about this topic, about the green environment, about the sustainable development, was during my master's degree. I wrote my master's degree on the topic of European Union public procurement and about the green and sustainable criteria inclusion in public money spending. So that was my first touch of this really large topic, and I think polarized topic, as sad as it can be, of course. But when I started working here in 2015 in Tauragė district municipality, I started as advisor to the mayor, and the mayor was Sigitas Mičiulis at that time, and he is 30 years. He's a big fan of energy efficiency, climate change. He was always talking about the Kyoto Agreement, about the Kyoto Protocols, about the Paris agreements, and I got a lot of information from him. He started that leadership that already have to go green way. We have to talk about the waste management, about the climate change, and all those topics. So right now I am enduring that leadership. I try to go deeper, to do more and more, and just trying to that Tauragė become the greenest municipality in Lithuania. I mean, we're doing a lot of things, but we have to do a lot more. And even though we are a small municipality worldwide, but we are big enough to show an example. So and our slogan is today we create future. So like official slogan of municipality, today we create future. So I think that's connected as well. And our new logo that started, I think, 2016, it's like a wind power plant, allusion to wind power plant.
Actually, Dovydas, some political scientists in Lithuania claim that environment is not among top priorities for Lithuanians, and we are in election season here, and we hardly see these issues discussed among the top issues in Lithuania here. What is your experience locally? Would you agree that still economic concerns, poverty is ranking higher, and environment, even though in Eurobarometer surveys, the share of Lithuanians who would agree that, for instance, climate change is the single biggest issue is increasing all the time, but still economic concerns override these environmental concerns.
Yeah, I think you're right, but we are going the good way, because when I remember 2015 and 2015 municipality election and 2016 our parliament elections, we did not see a lot of discussion. We did not see that problem in the political parties' programs. And after 3 to 4 years, in 2019, last year municipality election, and 2020 this year parliament elections, we can see it in the programs. We can see that a lot of politicians are talking about that. If it's enough, I don't think so that it's enough. We are still on the road on the beginning of the road, but we are going the good way. But as you say, there's a lot of other issues that overrides this discussion about green, sustainable development and the economy. And I remember in 2015 when the mayor became Sigitas Mičiulis, he immediately started speaking about that, and a lot of people were really skeptical, and some of them were laughing about it. So that was the shocking point for me, because people don't understand facts, or I don't know, but yeah, we are going the good way, so we have to do a lot of work right now.
In light of this global climate crisis and now also a pandemic, we hear a lot about the need to transform economies, focus on green recovery, close resource loop. This is the essence of so-called circular economy, change the way we produce, consume, travel, heat our homes, and even what we eat. This is all what this European Green Deal is about. How do you see it? What does it mean in practice from your perspective, where you are? Do you first think of individual or systemic changes when you hear this about the changes we need to overcome if we are if we are to deal with this existential threat of climate change or other environmental crisis? Anne, how does it sound from Norwegian perspective?
Yes, thank you. For Norway, a big the thing we need to focus on now is the way we change our economy. It's a big issue, and yes, of course, individuals need to take their part. If everyone took the best choices they could, we would come far. But at the same time, what we need to take these great issues is not in place right now. So that is something that also the politicians are responsible for getting in place. And yeah, if that answers your question.
What would be the priorities when you're saying that we need economic changes? What do you mean? Or for instance, what would you say in Norway on an individual level is normal? I don't know. Is it normal to cycle to work instead of taking a car? Is it easy to choose clean energy for your house or where you live? I don't know. Is plant-based diet becoming more popular? Just to understand what is this normal, new normal, what individuals are ready already to change on individual level, and then what systemic changes need to happen in order for this to go further.
Yes. Right now in Norway, a lot of, or especially in Oslo, and because the municipality of Oslo has had some green politicians recently that has tried to take the means necessary to change, to take steps to reach our goals. And for example, they saw that the people living in Oslo, they wanted to, they would love to take their bikes to work because the distance isn't that far in Oslo. So then the politicians also build out better infrastructure for people bicycling to work. So now it's easier, and then that also leads to even more people seeing it attractive than take their bike to work instead of the cars. So this is a great example of how this issue is interlinked, how demand from the people helped by policy of politicians then result in better solutions. And in terms of what Norway's issue is with the economy, for example, Norway is very dependent right now on oil, and we know that we have to cut our oil production to achieve the goals of the Paris Agreement, and then we need more legs to stand on. Economic growth is one of the SDGs, and what some point to as a problem with the SDGs is that what can be positive on one hand can also be negative on the other. And we see a lot of economic growth today at the expense of people and nature. So we must find ways to ensure that economic growth is not negative for the other goals we also want to achieve. And one challenge for communities and governments is to resolve the conflicts of interest also of local communities and the alternative renewable energy development, because that's also been a discussion here in Norway. What are we willing to sacrifice? Some say windmills, for example, is a good solution to get our energy other than from oil, but then some say this is conflicting with nature issues. So how also we will solve this. And this has actually become a quite intense debate in Norway right now. So at this moment, it's quite hard to conclude the discussions because of the very polarized views. So this is also an example of issues that we face in the transition towards a greener future.
Yes, thank you. And I know that Jivila is also is very passionate about and feels strongly about the role of communities and NGOs in these green transformations. Jivila, have you experienced any success stories? I know you've been involved in at least collecting the proposals from youth organizations about what systemic changes and in what areas would need to happen, and that these differ region by region. I think you have some, not only Lithuanian, but European perspective. So can you talk a bit more about that?
Thank you. So yeah, firstly on community and NGOs role, I feel strongly about it because I don't think that NGOs or communities can make big systemic changes because the power is not in their hands. But I do think that communities and people and NGOs have a big role to play in keeping the governments in check and accountable to what they're doing. So for example, if this European Green Deal will come about, there will be a lot of work to keep the governments accountable to that, and also to keep the governments accountable that it's implemented in a just way. And from my own experience of managing projects at the European level, youth projects at the European level, one of the projects was focusing on what young people want to get out from this European Green Deal. And what came out was actually a lot of small systemic changes. And as you mentioned, it was very different across Europe. But for example, in the Baltics, in the Baltics, the most important issue to young people was energy poverty, which I consider as quite a systemic issue because it doesn't only talk about climate justice, but it also talks about people's incomes. Yeah, so that I think that's already a very positive change, that young people are really thinking about the economy and not about climate just as like a one-off issue that is standing alone there.
How would you explain fuel poverty or energy poverty? What is it and how does it play out for locally?
Well, concretely in Lithuania, at this point, more than 27% of people cannot, are in what we consider energy poverty. So they either cannot pay for their energy bills, I'm talking about heating and electricity here, or they don't have access to it. That's a really huge problem. Lithuania is the second country in the whole EU by these rates. So at the same time, globally and also in Lithuania, we are overusing our energy because there's no energy efficiency. So the solution there actually would solve a social problem of people not being able to pay for their energy, but also would be related to reducing emissions, and that would be working on energy efficiency, working on renovation of houses, and things like that. At the same time, it's also understanding that it can't be just people renovating their houses because it's quite expensive, and if someone doesn't have income to pay for their energy, they probably won't have income to pay for renovation. So there needs to be a role of the governments to actually getting out all these subsidies for people to be able to renovate their homes, and then to be able to at least pay for their energy. At the same time, that would help for climate.
because we won't be wasting precious resources. That sounds pretty obvious. Dovydas, is this something that you echo working on a local level? Energy efficiency issues, fuel poverty, energy poverty. How do you experience that being a mayor of a district municipality?
Yeah, we do care about the energy efficiency. Actually, Tauragė is one of the leading cities in Lithuania with the renovation of buildings. Of course, as Živilė said, it's not only a city, it's a matter of people. And as far as I can see, people understand that we have to renovate, we have to save our energy, even though our central heating energy is one of the lowest in Lithuania. So it's kind of no logical incentive, to save energy because it's cheap. But people, they understand, they really want to renovate, and they are doing that. We even have the quiz, the lines, people to start the renovation. So the main thing that people here. What we do is we have electric buses in our public transportation, so we are planning to change our municipal car park to electric cars. And one of the biggest projects we had last year was the new lighting, the new LED lighting in the city, and it saves like 50% of the energy. Of all the energy, from the old to the new, and we have the better quality of lighting. We have longer lighting times, and we save energy. So it's like a really good decisions we have made. But as I said, the most important thing is people. And as you were talking about systematic or individual change, I think we cannot talk about this or that. We have to talk about this and this and this and this and this because we have to spread the news. And of course, there's a lot of the systematic changes in the public procurement and in the public money spending. There have to be a lot of changes systematically. But of course, there have to be a lot of changes in how we are doing business, how we understand business. But this goes through education. This goes through people, and we start with individual changes. So, as always in the history of our planet, of humanity, everything starts with one human and one follower, and then it grows to the bigger events and bigger revolutions. So I think we have to start by ourselves and show example, and hopefully it can grow and grow to something that can change our world. And this is happening.
Yeah, I know that. I know this sounds nice and logical, and we hear about this. Taking initiative, many small changes lead to many big changes. But for instance, the issue of waste management, at least in Lithuania, it's an example where I think individuals have answered the call to change their usual habits. They started sorting waste. They started using different bins. But the trust in the system, which doesn't seem to be working, is low. So what I mean is that sometimes people change their behavior, but the system doesn't follow. So, and I know that in your district municipality, you also apparently such a simple, basic issue of waste management is problematic. So how do you see solutions there? I know that you mentioned this as one of the things that you feel it's important to tackle. It's still not going well. And this is important from the circular economy perspective, saving the resources, all those things we mentioned already today.
Yeah, we have a lot of issues in our waste management.
I think we lost Dovydas, so until he reconnects, we can maybe go back to Živilė. Is this something what I mentioned about the issue with waste management? Is this something that you notice as well, considering your experience in this initiative, Let's Do It, that we mentioned? I think maybe not everybody knows it, but it's simply young people, not only young people, but communities who can no longer stand the sight of packaging lying around in the forests and seashores, basically taking trash bags and spending a day or even several days, right, collecting waste and working together with municipal waste management companies to recycle it or to make sure it ends up not in our lakes but in landfills and so on. So this is something, as at least from my perspective, it seems that it's so basic. We haven't managed this, but do you notice that this is getting better?
Well, you asked before also about the waste management and the individual action, and I think initiatives such as Let's Do It World is all well and good, but it still doesn't go beyond the individual action. So in a way, it raises a lot of awareness for people to know, what's happening, to know that waste is a problem. So that's great. And people start recycling, and people will go out to the streets in April to pick up all the waste, but it doesn't tackle the root cause of it. So we need to start asking ourselves, where does the waste even come from? Like, what's happening in our shops, the packaging and things like that. And these small things are not as simple to change as individual action, because perfectly we would need to also recycle less and less if the waste packaging was done in a more clever way. So I think it's still the individual action that can still go some way, but at some point there needs to be a systemic change. So talking about the circular economy and closing the cycle and things like that, that's something that one individual cannot do. So then municipalities, governments, companies, markets, shops have some role to play in that as well.
And do you feel that young people feel strongly about it, and they feel that they can do something about it? Is it, how to say, I think you mentioned before that even school curriculum doesn't always address that, and young people have to gather this knowledge and raise this awareness among themselves in their own, I don't know, social media, hopefully smart social media bubbles and networks where they support each other sharing this kind of information.
Yes, I think to have some political action, it's very important. The education is very important. And at least from my time in schools in Lithuania, I don't remember a lot of political education going on. And not just learning the basics about history and things like that, but also what power as individual do you have to change something, and how you can do that, how things work in the governments and the municipalities, how decisions are made. I think if we had that in schools, that would change a lot of how individuals behave. So and in terms of then individual action, behavioral change, but also that some people may be more inclined to also, let's say, join the NGOs and go out to the streets to protest and things like that. But yeah, I think education is a big part, but I don't think that's happening, at least here in Lithuania.
Since we have Dovydas back, and I think you got cut off, unfortunately, mid-sentence, as you were trying to tell us more about how you plan on tackling the waste management issues locally. We were talking about the fact that many people have made a lot of effort, at least here in Lithuania, changing their habits and educating themselves about the need to recycle and reuse and use less, and handle packaging properly so that it doesn't end up, I don't know, on the lake shores. But the system is still struggling and is losing public trust. So how do you see solutions there? I think it would be interesting to hear some thoughts on that as well.
Yeah, sorry about that. But the system, you say it's losing trust. I think that the system never had trust because the system doesn't work the proper way as it's supposed to work. I think we have some problems that there is like 4 municipalities that are having one company, and I see that we are lacking some, lacking some skills of common decisions making, in Lithuania, but it's getting better as well. But as you say, this is the line of that waste management, and we have problems in all of them, as you mentioned. And the first one is the prevention. We are speaking about the prevention. It's education, actually, education of people, what they have to do, and what is good to do for the environment. But education doesn't work if the system don't have trust. So the first thing what we have to create is the good system of recycling, because right now we have the system where people are recycling, but when we collect all those recycled trashes, we put everything together, and people can see it with their eyes, and this is the problem. Then no, they do not believe it. Of course, we know that later in the cycle, all those goods are recycled again in some kind of I mean, it's all recycled again. People recycling, then the company of recycling is recycling. But when people see that all the trashes are put together, they say, oh, they do not believe that it's recycled later on, and then they do not feel empowered to handle the trashes correctly. So of course, then we have to speak about the incarceration plans. We started it in Lithuania. We have 3 of them right now, and of course, it's better to have energy from the trashes than to put it in a dumping site. But this have some discussions too, because from our region we have to go with 30% of our waste to Kaunas. And to burn it, and we have to pay to burn it. And that incarceration plant gives energy to Kaunas municipality citizens. So this, of course, it's better than to put in a dumping site. But we have a lot of discussions going right now in our municipality about that. I'm not speaking about the green. Those green trashes, like leaves or food trashes. We do not recycle them at all. I mean, we are doing nothing in this field. So we have to create new strategies, new technologies. I think I don't think that we need to create it. We need just to put it in a way that it works.
Mm-hmm. Anna, would you say that waste management and in the context of the circular economy in Norway is something that works? And are there any, I don't know, just basically even from consumer perspective, any success stories or lessons that we could learn? Would you say that this is something that Norway has handled already and is thinking about other, I don't know, maybe not more complex, but other systemic questions in terms of this green energy, green transformation, green economy transformation?
Yes, waste management has in Norway for years now been a focus, also as well as recycling plastic bottles. You have you pay extra when you buy a bottle, and then some of that money, when you give it back, you also get that money back. So that's like an incentive, something that's worked. Now the example of electrical cars is maybe something that the world Norway has invested in, but also those kind of investments, you need a big economy to do. Why people in Norway has been able to buy electrical cars is because it's been so heavily subsidized by Norway. And right now, as much as 10% of Norwegian cars are electric, but without the economic incentives, the share of electrical cars in Norway has been estimated to be less than 1%, as it is in most other countries. So it's very important, in my view, where the government choose to put their incentives and lead the economy. From here on.
Jibila was talking about the importance of education in terms of switching on the political thinking among the young people, and also helping young people to make informed decisions, and maybe even put constructive pressure on decision makers for more sustainable political systemic changes. Would you say that the education system that you have background on helped you to become more politically active and engaged as a citizen in these environmental issues? And in what way?
Yeah, I remember also same as you. So when I was younger, went to school, it was we were taught about the big picture, and then that's that. We talked about the problems, but then again, it stops there. Then we go on to the next class, and then just this issue just stays this big, enormous issue that's really hard to tackle and really difficult for individuals to know how they can be a part of the change. And then recently now, Norway has gone through a reform in their schools, and are now also looking at ways to not only teach about these issues, but also give the students tools to tackle the problems. And also my SPIRE, the organization I've been active in previously, has this pilot project where SPIRE then goes to contact schools that want put together, web together class, and then they will come and present it and engage the students in new ways, creative ways, show them how to engage in the politics, because we say that we need change rights, and then we need younger voices to be heard, but also for younger voices to be heard, we need them in the politics. And a lot of, I think also a lot of young people feel that politics is a bit distant from their everyday life, and it's quite diffuse and hard to come to that point where you take the action of actually becoming engaged in politics. So showing students that it's not that difficult to engage, and you can engage in a political party, you can also engage in organizations, you can then push the governments towards greater actions.
We all heard, we all know of the phenomenon of Greta Thunberg, and in one way or another, I think probably there is no country where youth movements have not been influenced by the young Swedish climate activists. Would you say, since most of you have a background in youth activism organizations, does your voice have more chances to be heard because of the Greta effect, so-called Greta effect? Can you do more than just take to the streets today? And at least I know in Lithuania, and Živile will correct me if I'm wrong, but there has been some looking down on young people from adults. There have been these tensions. I don't know if they have been resolved yet, but you see on one hand these young people trying to say something what they care about, and even to propose priorities, to lay them out in a united and concerted way. And at the same time, these adults, even those in power positions, they seem to be very skeptical, or they point toward the school and say, go back to class. I mean, are things changing? Are there chances to be taken more seriously by the adult world, or by those in politics or in power positions? What do you think, Živile?
I started being an activist when I was 14, so that's more than 10 years ago, and it definitely has changed since then. I would say I remember when I was going to United Nations talks and conference of the parties related to climate change in years of 2014 and 2013. And yes, it was really hard for young people to get their voices out there. I mean, most of it was through actions, because young people at that point didn't have the like platform to actually say what they think about climate change. It was we needed to make our own platform for that, right? We needed to go on the streets to make actions and to actually make sure that somebody hears us. Since the Fridays for Future movement has broke out, I think at least NGOs and municipalities and governments have, although there's people who still don't believe that young people should do anything about climate, but yeah, NGOs and municipalities have started looking at young people at that direction, but I'm not sure whether all of them are listening still to what they have to say, or whether because it's now so popular or has been popularized by Greta Thunberg and Fridays for Future, these, like, let's say, adults, and I'm talking now from my own experience, that these adults still sort of like look down on you, but still expect you to be there, because at this point it's very like hip to have young people in your actions, in your projects. Yeah, so this is my experience about how it has changed, but maybe not yet the full way.
Anna, would you say that it's changing so that not only it's hip to have people in representative bodies, but also you feel that you can influence decisions, that it's becoming more real, so to say, more effective, not just formal?
In terms of climate negotiations, I would say that Norwegian youth has been quite lucky for some time now, because we've had these youth delegate positions in the Norwegian delegations, going to these meetings in UN, not only on climate, but also on different other topics. And that is a way in for youth to actually talk to these other negotiators and be closer to the politicians as well, because the ministers or whoever, whatever topic it is, some politicians will be represented, right? So then in this way, youth is one step closer to being heard, and I think that could be good, because I know not all countries has a youth delegate, so implementing that, for example, making that the natural part of international politics is a step forward in the right direction. And it's stated in Article 6 in the Paris Agreement that countries are shall try to enhance public participation, for example. So this is not only something that we demand, it's something that they also, the countries, have agreed that they are going to do. So then then they have to deliver on that and make not only youth as their tokens. It's nice to have a youth representative here. Let's hear them talk, and then we go back doing our status quo normal politics, but actually also listening to what youth are demanding, because as you know, youth are usually a bit more impatient about finding a solution, and that's at the end of the day why it's so important, because we have all the solutions. As you also said, you also have the solutions on how to, for example, deal with waste management, right? But we just have to put them in action, and that's where it's important that youth are included and heard, because they are always pushing strongly in that direction.
Yeah, and this impatience is also something that we hear from science community, that urgent action is needed. That there is no more time to debate whether it's worth it, but it's actually of existential importance to act now. Dovydas, would you say you are an impersonation, on an example of public trusting young generation to take matters in their own hands as a young generation local politician representative? But do you are young, that's a fact, but how do you in your district municipality incorporate younger voices, and also NGOs and communities that Živile and Anna were talking about, the importance of engaging local communities as well, not only businesses, not only economic interests, but also community interests?
One of the main things what we are trying to change and what we are doing here in municipality is exactly what we were saying, that we are to talk more about the communities and to empower them more. And actually in last year we got an award from the municipality association for the work with the communities. So it starts with a question mark, which roads should we build in your community? Which one you think it's more serious, or which one do you want? It starts with that, and we give them opportunity to create the culture. We give them the resources that they need to create their own culture, their own festivals and everything like that. And of course we give, there's a lot of new projects in national level, and we say that if you bring some money from national level, doesn't matter what kind of project it is, we give the 10 or 20% of the needed resources, so you can do that project. And they are writing projects to all the ministries, they are winning it, and they are all kind of projects. Some of them they are building kindergarten, some of them they are doing something for their community, like technical, those objects. There's a lot of happening, and we try to include them more. Of course, you can always be better at this. Let's say when we are speaking about the main projects of our city, we are doing the public meetings in the area of where people will be impacted, not in our office buildings. So we try to go more to the community and just to speak with them, to speak the truth, to answer all their questions, and to empower them and to build trust. One of the most important things is to build trust, so they could feel that they can make influence or I don't know. But of course, there is a lot of situations. It's not that easy as it sounds. Some people they try to. We always have to separate the individual interest and public interest. We are talking about always. We are talking about the public interest, and when the individual talks, usually he talks about individual interest. So we have to navigate through that really minefield to have the best decisions with the community.
I think you mentioned when we talk about this green transformation or sustainable transformation, long-term strategies for on the local level. For instance, I think you are still working on this for your district. You were talking about the problem of capacities or know-how in terms of this green development locally. If you highlight this as a challenge, for instance. It's important, I guess, to have a team and to be able to propose and implement those progressive decisions and changes. Where do you see the opportunities to build those capacities? Okay, you had the chance to study abroad and gain education that gave you some sort of knowledge in that area of sustainable aspects of management, but this may not be the case, outside of the capital cities in smaller countries like Lithuania, for instance.
Yeah, we have those problems with capacity, especially in two fields. When I'm speaking about the municipality work in the public procurement, it's always when we are buying things based on the lowest price. It's easier, it's faster, and it's it's just easier, faster. And when we are speaking about the inclusion of the public in the public procurement process, the greener criteria, sustainable criteria, all the process just builds up, and then we need a lot of capacity in the public procurement field, and we do not always have it, but it's a matter of time, I think, and of process. We have to try it, always try to use all those criteria, and then during the time we will understand how we do it, and then everything can go smooth. Other than that, we have a vision, or we would like to have a person in our municipality like Živile or Anna, so we can have a sustainable development project manager, and we just do not have one with the right education, with the right mindset, especially with the sense of a care of the city, of sustainable manager, and in sense of the care of the world development sustainable. But I think what we have to do, we have to be open-minded. We have to speak about the new ideas and try to bring those people back to our city. And actually, right now, I know at least two, and they are the ambassadors of our city in other countries. We have that Global Tauragė project where we ask people to become ambassadors of Tauragė in foreign countries, and hopefully they can come back one day and try to implement what they thought, because they are also speaking about that they are learning a lot. They want to do. They want to impact. The young generations. We want to impact, to feel that we can make impact. So I'm always saying the best impact we can do is in the municipal level. So hopefully that they can come back and try to impact the world in the municipality. So.
That sounds like an optimistic prospect for a younger generation to actually have a position on the local level. We have to start rounding up, and I always like to ask people I talk to about environmental issues and global environmental crisis. Usually, these are not very, high-spirited and optimistic discussions, even though the people I talk to have experience and are convinced, activists from their areas. But basically, what keeps you going? What inspires you? What gives you strength to act, to stay active in the areas where you work, be it local politics or even UN level or grassroots movement. Anne, what keeps you going?
The fact that it's still possible to change and to reach the Paris Agreement goals is only a matter of will. And of course, it's a difficult issue, and how we will solve it, and if we solve it, is a matter of how countries now in the years to come will take on the challenge and prioritize in the direction of a better world for the future generations and for also the people living on this planet today. So for me, it's still a fight for justice, and it's possible. It's only a matter of political will.
Okay, Jivila, how about you? What keeps you going?
I think it's a mix of things. So probably three main things. One, very simple, the community that's surrounding me. A lot of young people also believing in the same thing. It's just amazing how it keeps you motivated. Every day you meet them or every week you meet them. The second thing is more internal, which I think is a bit of, because I'm looking at climate as a justice issue, I still feel sort of angry for people who are already feeling those injustices. But that's also a good motivation to do something about it. And the third is, as Anna said, is the hope that something can still change, and it will change. It will need to change at some point. So yeah, the hope that the governments, the EU, the municipalities will very soon be taking action to really implement the economical changes that are needed to really deal with the current climate crisis.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And Dovydas, how about you? What motivates you to keep integrating those sometimes novel aspects of sustainability in local governance?
First of all, I think that what motivates me is the understanding that is really happening. Last year in Lithuania, we have the first winter, as far as I can remember, with no snow at all. The first winter, so I think it's really eye-opening to a lot of people that it's really happening, that the climate change is happening, and this understanding I think is the most important thing to have in mind. And this year we got the awards from the Transport Ministry and from European Union office here in Lithuania about our green incentives, about our green decisions, and this motivates us to be an example, even though we are small, to make a big, to impact to the world, but we are big enough to be an example. And this is what we believe, and this is what motivates us to go that way.
Thank you so much. Thank you all three of you, and good luck in whatever you're doing. Stay strong. And with this, we ended this Nordic Talks discussion, Youth Voices for Nature, with Anne Serelli in Oslo, Živile Mantrimaitė in Klaipėda, and Dovydas Kaminskas in Tauragė, and me, Vaida Pilibaitytė in Vilnius. Just a reminder that this discussion was organized in cooperation with the Nordic Council of Ministers Office in Lithuania, Embassy of Norway in Lithuania, Embassy of Denmark in Lithuania, Embassy of Sweden in Lithuania, and Embassy of Finland in Lithuania. Stay tuned for more of this in the future, and goodbye for now. Bye, everyone.